We're going to talk with Billy, he, him. Billy, you are talking with Secular Rarity and Richard Gilliver. Let me make sure that I have this right. It sounds like you want us to prove love exists. Is that correct?
Partly, I mean, it's just a topic as well to discuss what it would entail.
Yeah. No, I'm up for the challenge. I'll give kind of my little quick spiel, Billy, and then I'll kick it over to Richard, and then we'll pass it back to you if that works. But so what I would say to prove love exists, what I would say first off is in defining love, love is broadly a concept that is made up of mostly a handful of types of feelings that human beings can experience, have experienced, do experience, and reported on those experiences. Those feelings that arise inside of us are a combination of a couple of different things. One major portion of that are these really cool chemicals inside our body. So because that's what I'm defining love as, I got to be honest, I got to feel like it exists pretty easily from there, right? Because we all seem to talk about it. We all have similar feelings. We can poke us in the brain to release certain chemicals or take certain chemicals away and feel this feeling more or less. But hang on, Billy, I'm going to kick it over to Richard first, and then we'll get your thoughts on what we said. So what you got, Richard?
Yeah, there's a really helpful book when discussing this, and it's called A Human History of Emotion by my good friend and non-profit, the ACA's own non-profit, Dr. Richard Firth Godby here.
Badass,
and he speaks about the emotion of love in that. And it's not just this like invisible thing that exists. It is part of the chemicals in our body. It's part of the way we're wired. It's a part of the way we interpret the world. And it's really, really good to kind of understand this. We have... and this applies, I mean, this is not an abstract concept, but, you know, we can prove purely abstract concepts exist in reality. And as well, so love isn't a purely abstract concept. Love is an emotion. It's the word love and the kind of description we give to love is just a descriptor to what happens chemically in our bodies and our relationship to that happening. So it's a real thing. It's something that exists in reality, which we can kind of assess and we can measure and we can describe.
Yeah. So I think Richard and I are broadly on the same page there. Also, that Richard Firth Godby here guy, super badass dude. But Billy, what do you think about what we just said?
Yeah, I'd like to ask you both. Then, you know, it sounds to me like you both define love as entirely a chemical process or
No. And I understand why it may seem like that was what we were saying, but I truly think what both of us are saying is there is both a conceptual aspect to it, right? There is this like this is the reason why we can paint really pretty pictures of flowers 700 years ago. And then people go like, yes, love, you know, because there is this conceptual aspect to it, but there is also this just very innately physical, you know, just rocks and sand, like just earth, just here tangibility to it. But that's not all of it.
You do think that,
right? Because if we really start talking about what neurotransmitters do in the brain, you're gonna hear somebody go, "Oh my gosh, oxytocin!" Like it's the love drug, but it's not. Oxytocin does a lot of things in our brain. It is very much associated with those happy, good feelings that we call love. But I wouldn't say that feeling in and of itself or that chemical in and of itself is what love is. It's got multiple aspects to it, right?
Excuse me. So you would say we couldn't fully describe what love is purely with a chemical description.
Yeah.
Matt, you're saying.
Yeah. I think there is absolutely more to it than that, but that is a huge part of where those feelings come from inside of us.
Do you mind if I ask something? So the other part that is not a chemical process, would you say that also exists?
Yes, as a concept.
Yes.
And how would you demonstrate? I mean, does it need proof that exists? Would you say you could prove it exists?
Yes, we can
because we know
prove concepts exist, right? Just the same as, like, if I asked you right here, right now, just do your best. It's not some crazy gotcha or anything, Billy, but like, describe a unicorn for me. Can you do that?
I wouldn't say a unicorn exists, though.
But could you describe what a unicorn would look like if one were standing in front of us? What would that look like? I have a description in my head. I would put money that Richard does too. I'd also put money that you do too, considering you're in the UK and Scotland's animal is one. But what do you think a unicorn looks like? Just give me any description whatsoever. Does any concept come to mind, Billy? This isn't a gotcha. This is a serious, simple question.
Well, my answer is that I don't think unicorns exist. They're fictional. But I think I'm asking.
But what would a unicorn look like if one were real? If the three of us were standing in a room, what would a unicorn look like? Richard, do you have an answer to this question?
Yeah, it's really simple. And
I have an answer to this question. I feel confident everybody in the chat has an answer to this question. And I'm going to be honest, Billy.
Are you going to allow me?
I really think you do too. If a unicorn were standing in the same room as you, myself, and Richard, what would it look like? Give us any description.
Well, if you'll allow me. You could describe something which was like a horse with a horn and everything, but that wouldn't...
Boom, that's it. That's it, Billy. Perfect. The concept clearly exists because we both share that concept. All I had to do was just keep yelling the same nonsense mouth sounds at you. And finally, you were like, yeah, man, I know what that mouth sound means. And it's this thing that kind of looks like a horse, but it has a fucking horn coming out of the middle of its head. And now we can go on to the process where you and I both 100% agree that it is not a real animal. It does not exist. There is no good reason to accept that this thing is running through the forest somewhere with Bigfoot and fairies. We're both on the same page there. But just like when I said unicorn, and then I just said Bigfoot and fairies, all of us that heard that put some type of image together, put some type of construction in our head together. And that's a demonstration that the concept exists, because all concepts are these fun little thoughts in our brains. Now, we can have a crazy, difficult discussion about where thoughts come from and what's actually going on with sodium, potassium, and ions and neurons. But honestly, there's a lot of other people that are way better for that stuff. But concepts, yeah, they exist, man, but they're not tangible. They're not like this water bottle, and that's okay. There's two types of existence there. That's okay.
So would you say they do exist?
They do exist in a form as concepts, right? But concepts are all things that are built on material, physical, tangible things, right? Again, we may not, we're going to have to go down this route a little bit. And I'm so sorry, everybody. Go listen to Patricia Churchland and other people like her. Shannon Q, actually, also a great person in this vein. But when it comes to where concepts are in the brain, when it comes to how concepts form in the brain, when it comes to why humans understand music, like, we're not perfect with all of that. We do know that, but there is a massive, massive amount of understanding that really does demonstrate, hey, this squishy stuff up here that's like encased in this big hard bone with our like face on it, like, that's where all of this stuff gets kind of synthesized and put together. And so, yes, concepts are not tangible in the same way that an actual horse would be if we're all standing together, right? A unicorn is not going to be in the same category of existence as that actual freaking horse that we're riding and petting together.
Billy, what was the importance of this question for you?
Because when he came to because when we separated the fact that love has a distinction between the chemicals and the conceptual aspect, the question that he was focusing on was whether or not concepts can be shown to exist, and what is that nature of a conceptual existence. And so there's a difference between tangible existence and conceptual existence, but both fall within the same material realm of existence. Does that make sense?
Hello. Did you wish to have a conversation with me, or are you just going to do a long monologue?
Well, I'm going to mute you for a second. And the reason I'm going to mute you and not drop you is because I love the folks from the UK. And I know in general, you're just a bit more snarky fuckers than us in the US. So I'm not going to take offense to that shitty comment. But what I am going to do is say, yes, concepts do exist in a form. They're not tangible, but they absolutely do exist. And I think that can be demonstrated in part by when we say things like unicorns, which we all agree are not tangible, but we do all kind of coalesce around an understanding of what they are, right? So if you'd like to discuss that and whether you have any pushback on that, we sure can. So I'm going to unmute you. What do you think about concepts existing or not existing?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, Billy.
Hello? Yeah. I don't think we have a description of what a unicorn is. We can describe a horse with a horn, but that's not a real thing. That's a horse with the DNA of a horse. We know horses exist. I mean, all we're thinking of when we describe a unicorn is basically a horse with some extra protrusion. That's not a different thing. That's a horse with some sort of deformity.
No, that's literally the fucking description of a unicorn. When people believed unicorns did exist, that was the description that they thought of.
Well, they were wrong.
Do you have trouble, Billy, understanding what a concept is?
Yeah, this is what's confusing me.
When people believed unicorns existed, they don't exist.
Billy, yeah. I don't give a shit, mate.
Billy,
listen, Billy, no,
you're the one that believes in something that Richard and I don't think exists. Are you saying your God is just a concept, or you're saying there's a tangible well, I don't know if you'd even say that because you seem to struggle with concepts. Is your God tangible, Billy? That shouldn't be a hard question.
Tangible.
That shouldn't be a hard question.
Go back to if you'd like me to answer, I'll try. If we go back to your description of love, there was a tangible side, which was the chemical process. And then you said other things which you said still existed, but couldn't be described by a physical process. But you say they're real things, but you say they're real like a unicorn is real. But I disagree with that. I think unicorns just aren't real. But love is real, and I agree, it has more to it than
the concept of a unicorn. It's not that unicorns are real, it's the concept. Do you believe that the concept of unicorns exists? Like, is there a thing that's conceptual that's a unicorn? Do any of those mouth sounds make sense to you?
The pictures, it's a picture which looks like a horse, but it doesn't correspond to anything real. It's not real.
Let's just leave the unicorn aside because that's obviously a bit too hard for you. So let's simplify it a little bit. An architect has drawn a blueprint for a building. He's got a building. Yeah. It's a conceptual picture of a building. From that concept, a real tangible building comes. So we have both a concept and a physical thing. They both exist in reality.
Yeah.
They are both real things. They both exist in reality. But one is conceptual. The other is a physical thing, a physical manifestation of this concept.
You allow me to answer your point. In the case of a building, then definitely it can be corresponded to an actual thing because you can follow the instructions. In the case of a unicorn, nothing corresponds.
No, forget the unicorn. Forget the unicorn. I'm not bothered about the unicorn. The unicorn's dead. Boom, we've just shot the unicorn fucking dead. No more unicorn. Let's just talk about the building.
Yeah. The point at which the building is blueprints only and no foundation has been laid, is that building tangible? Is that conceptual? Where does it exist?
I've answered that point. You could build
it again for us,
because that corresponds to something that you could possibly instantiate.
So what you're saying is that a concept cannot exist unless there is a correlation to the actual world around us? Is that what your stance is?
Yeah, if you haven't built it yet, then no.
Yes, so love exists. Fantastic. We've answered your question. How the fuck does that relate to God?
I don't know. I can keep.
Really?
The fact that a building can be built mean that you when you refer to the types of love which aren't chemical processes, I think there corresponds a thing in reality which you're referring to, which is that thing. That I think it's a real thing. It may not be a physical chemical thing, but as we've agreed, there's more to it than just a chemical thing. I think that actually exists in reality. Whereas,
of course, it exists in reality.
I just think we're gonna have a real struggle if we can't accept a conceptual existence. Like, if we can't accept that there are things out there that like are just like thoughts, then I don't even know how to have the conversation, man, because it feels like you are just working with like maximum of fourth of the deck, because it's just like you're just writing off every idea out there that doesn't have a tangible relation in the world around it. And it's just like, then you have to ask the question. Then you have to go do this stupid thing of being like, oh, well, like, are numbers like tangible? Like, and so this is the problem, Billy. I think you need to go have a little bit more of a think on conceptual existence. Just literally type those words into all the socials and the Googles and see what comes up. Because I feel like there's going to be a lot of it. Because I'll just be honest, like the shit I was saying right at the beginning of this conversation, I didn't just come up with that. That's not on me. That's like a bunch of people that have been talking about what thoughts are for a long time and how they do exist, but like don't exist in the same way as like, you know, other things. No, it's okay, Billy. I appreciate you. And we're going to let you go. And like I said to the other caller, I'm on next week. Give me a call back if you want to. But I don't know. I really felt like, and I know this, I'm biased because I think my, examples are great. That's why I think of them. Right. But, I really feel like what you said about the blueprint and the building was like more steps to follow than the unicorn one. And so I was really struggling that we couldn't, I was like, just give me a concept. What do you think of when I say unicorn? And he's like, well, I don't think of anything. They're not real. And I'm like, that doesn't make fucking sense, man. You think of a horse with a fucking horn.
The problem is when people like Billy come along or want to try and throw gotchas at you, and they can't even bring themselves to admit that, like, how long did it take you to get him to admit what a unicorn was, just to describe the concept of a unicorn?
Stupid, I know.
It's, and nobody's saying that because there's a concept, it exists in reality, but we know love exists.
Right.
We know it's I literally described to him what it was. It was a relationship between those chemicals and our interpretation of the world. It's a complex thing. Emotions are complex things.
A tangible side and a conceptual side. Like, I mean, please, guys, please. I am known for spending way too long in the Discord after shows, and I will do that today after this show. Like, if what I'm saying about this difference between conceptual existence and tangible existence is just fucking wild out of left field, come to the after show, yell at me, because I honestly believe that makes a lot of sense.